Ashley Madison was built for discretion. It's not for everyone. It's for people who don't want a spotlight, who don't need validation, who don't want their curiosity turned into content. A place designed for privacy and choice, where connections happen quietly and always on your terms. Because some things are better when no one else is watching. Where desire meets discretion. Ashley Madison. Download the app now or visit ashleymadison.com/iHeartMedia.
Imagine a human body fighting off a totally unknown, rapidly mutating virus.
Right.
You don't survive that kind of attack just by having really thick skin, you know? You survive because you have an immune system.
Yeah, exactly.
It's this incredible real-time sensor network that detects the invader, synthesizes a custom response, and completely reconfigures your cellular defenses on the fly.
Right. It's a dynamic response. It
Yeah.
doesn't just passively take the hit. It actively learns how to neutralize the threat, adapts to the new reality, and remembers the mechanism for next time.
And that biological miracle is like the exact perfect metaphor for what we are looking at today. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're exploring how organizations actually survive and even thrive during chaotic global disruptions. We've got this fascinating piece of research by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover.
Yeah, it's a great paper.
It proves artificial intelligence isn't just a software upgrade. It acts as an actual biological-style immune system for businesses facing global disaster.
It's a highly compelling perspective because, it deliberately looks past the massive flashing neon signs of artificial intelligence hype.
Oh, for sure.
It gets down into the actual mechanical gears of how AI functions as that organizational immune system you just mentioned. Because, it's important to establish right away, AI is not a magic wand.
Right.
You can't just buy a flashy algorithm, wave it over your company's server room, and suddenly become invincible. It is a highly specific tool, and unlocking its value requires a very specific human culture.
Okay, let's unpack this, because whether you are managing a massive global team or you're just, a mid-level manager trying to navigate your own career in a world of constant, dizzying change, this deep dive is going to give you a shortcut to understanding the future of survival.
Absolutely.
But before we get into the mechanics of exactly how AI works to save a company, we need to prove that it works. And for that, we turn to the ultimate global stress test, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic provided a stark, undeniable before and after picture for corporate survival. But first, we need to redefine a word that gets thrown around a lot in business literature, which is resilience.
Okay, lay it on me.
When we talk about organizational resilience in this context, we aren't talking about robustness. Robustness is a concrete bunker. It withstands a shock, but it doesn't move. Resilience, as defined in this research, is entirely about adaptive capacity.
Right. Most people think of resilience as like a shock absorber on a car. You hit a pothole, the shock absorber takes the bump, and you keep driving so you don't feel it in the cabin.
Exactly.
But what we're talking about here is more like a GPS system that instantly recalculates your entire cross-country route, the millisecond a bridge washes out ahead of you. You aren't just bouncing back to the same road, you are bouncing forward onto a better one. Disruption becomes a catalyst for innovation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, modern disruptions simply move too fast for human-only supply chain buffers. A physical shock absorber is completely useless if the entire road disappears beneath you.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Pre-digital shocks were slower, more isolated. But think about what companies faced during COVID-19. Simultaneous demand volatility, massive global supply chain failures, total workforce displacement, and regulatory chaos all at the exact same time.
It was unprecedented.
Right. Human cognition simply cannot process that many variables at once. Survival required real-time sensing.
And there is hard data to back that up. The research points to a 2021 study by Belhadi and colleagues. They found that manufacturing firms with high AI maturity experienced 30% less production disruption during the lockdowns compared to their peers.
Wow.
But wait, before we go further, what exactly does AI maturity mean? Are we just talking about companies that bought the most expensive software licenses?
Not at all. High AI maturity means the technology is deeply integrated into the core workflows of the business. It's not just sitting in a siloed IT experiment.
Okay.
And when it is integrated, it translates directly to the bottom line. There's a concept in the paper called the AI Resilience Premium, based on a 2023 study by El Khoury.
Right, I saw that.
They looked at 500 publicly traded companies. During the worst of the pandemic quarters, firms with high AI adoption saw a revenue decline of only negative 8.2%. Meanwhile, their low AI peers dropped by negative 15.7%.
That is almost double the financial damage just for being behind on the tech curve.
Exactly. But here is the critical part. The high AI firms didn't just bleed less, they healed significantly faster. They recovered to their pre-pandemic revenue levels 2.1 quarters faster on average.
I mean, in the business world, recovering half a year earlier than your competitor means you are actively buying up market share while they are still trying to figure out how to keep the lights on.
It's an undeniable advantage.
But knowing that AI builds resilience is only step one. The critical failure many organizations make is treating AI as a uniform binary switch. You flip it on and you're safe.
Right.
But Dr. Westover's research breaks AI down into two distinct flavors based on their purpose work-oriented AI and social-oriented AI.
This is a vital distinction. Work-oriented AI targets task execution. It thrives on structured problems and quantitative data.
So numbers and spreadsheets.
Exactly. We are talking about algorithms that forecast massive demand fluctuations, automate thousands of hours of data entry, or optimize pricing algorithms dynamically. It focuses entirely on task performance and calculation speed.
Right. So work AI does the math. It calculates the raw logistics. But what about the second flavor?
Social-oriented AI is entirely different. It focuses on relational processes. It deals primarily with unstructured data to facilitate collaboration and collective sense-making.
Wait, let's pause right there. Unstructured data. I know structured data is basically a neat, clean Excel spreadsheet with rows and columns.
Sure.
But what exactly is the AI reading when it looks at unstructured data? Is it just reading our emails and company chat logs?
It's processing emails, chat logs, video meeting transcripts, and even the tone or sentiment of internal communications. It maps the human network of the organization. If a crisis hits, social-oriented AI can instantly surface hidden expertise within a company. It might flag that an engineer in the Seattle office actually solved a similar supply chain bottleneck 3 years ago, connecting them with a panicked team in London who desperately needs that knowledge.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when you read a description of social-oriented AI, it's easy to be skeptical. I have to ask, is social-oriented AI just a glorified company directory or a chat app, or does it actually move the needle during a crisis?
It's a completely valid skepticism. But a chat app just transmits messages from point A to point B. Social-oriented AI provides collective intelligence.
Okay.
When a global disaster hits, you don't just need new math. You need panicked, geographically dispersed human beings to align instantly. If work-oriented AI calculates the new logistical shipping route, social-oriented AI ensures the 1,000 separate people required to execute that new route actually know what they're doing.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it figures out who holds the decision rights and where the interpersonal bottlenecks are forming. It curates unstructured human chaos into coordinated action.
Okay, so you have the math AI and the people AI, but how do you actually sequence that? When a massive crisis hits, a company can't just mash the deploy software button on day one of a lockdown and hope for the best.
Right, definitely not.
How do these tools actually power a response in real time?
It happens sequentially. A resilient organization uses these AI tools to build what the paper calls dynamic capabilities. And the very first step of that is sensing. You have to detect the threat before it actually hits the balance sheet.
Sensing is about processing vast data sets to find hidden anomalies, right?
Exactly.
I want to look closely at Unilever here because their sensing capability was practically clairvoyant. Back in 2019, they deployed a multi-source environmental scanning system. And they weren't just looking at internal sales data or supply chain spreadsheets.
No, they went way bigger.
Yeah, they integrated massive amounts of unstructured data from 190 different countries.
Yes, and the mechanism behind that is brilliant. The AI was parsing millions of text strings on social media, looking at global weather patterns, reading local economic indicators, and cross-referencing all of it.
So when COVID actually hit, that system was basically reading the matrix. It didn't just say sales are down. It detected massive, complex shifts.
Right, like the hand sanitizer thing.
Exactly. It noticed that restaurant supplier orders were collapsing in certain regions, while at the same time, localized consumer chatter about hand sanitizer was skyrocketing. It connected a lockdown mandate in one country to a spike in specific commodity demands in another.
Which is just incredible visibility.
Because the AI saw the wave forming weeks before traditional quarterly sales reports would have flagged the issue, Unilever was able to reroute their raw materials early. They maintained a 93% product availability rate while the rest of the retail world was staring at completely empty shelves.
And we saw something super similar with Target, right? They used AI to analyze weather, local events, and social media trends.
Oh, right, the home office boom.
Exactly. They spotted the suburban home office boom incredibly early on, which resulted in a 10.8% sales growth. And we see that same sensing capability applied to the supply chain with Siemens.
Yeah.
You can't just know what your direct suppliers are doing during a crisis. You have to know what your supplier's supplier is doing.
Explain that mechanism. How does an AI map out a deep-tier relationship with a company you don't even have a contract with?
It builds a dependency web. The AI supply chain control tower reads public records, global shipping manifests, local news reports in multiple languages, and financial filings.
Wow, so it's constantly scraping everything.
Yeah. When the Asian semiconductor supply completely froze during the pandemic, Siemens AI had already mapped those hidden dependencies. It knew exactly which obscure downstream factories were going offline, and it suggested alternative sources within 48 hours.
That's insane.
By sensing the blockage early, they avoided 40% of the production delays their competitors suffered.
That is incredible. But sensing the problem is only half the battle. If sensing is a company's eyes and ears spotting the smoke from across the room, the next step has to be the muscle reflexes kicking in to actually grab the fire extinguisher.
I love that analogy.
And that is what the research calls operationalization.
Precisely. Operationalization is the ability to translate those early insights into coordinated, rapid action. It's where the AI moves from an observer to an active participant in the company's daily operations.
Look at Maersk, the massive global shipping company. During the pandemic, international ports were closing unpredictably, sometimes overnight. A human planner cannot manually recalculate the trajectory of hundreds of cargo ships fast enough.
No, it's mathematically impossible.
Maersk used an AI system to evaluate thousands of variables, changing weather patterns, port congestion data, fluctuating fuel prices, and localized lockdown rules. What used to take human planners days of agonizing calculations was suddenly being done in hours.
Right.
Because of that speed, their on-time delivery only declined by 6%, compared to an industry average drop of 14%.
But what is crucial to understand about Maersk's approach is the deliberate boundary between human and machine. Maersk used AI for decision support.
Okay.
The AI made the complex routing recommendations, but a human overseer made the final call.
Right, because you can't just let an algorithm accidentally sail a multi-million-dollar freighter into a closed port or a hurricane because of a software glitch. The stakes are astronomically high.
Exactly. But compare that to Walmart's operationalization. Walmart used AI to analyze sales velocity across 11,000 retail stores daily.
Yeah.
When the pandemic panic buying hit, their AI didn't just send a recommendation to a manager. It automatically adjusted store staffing schedules and automatically triggered restock orders for cleaning supplies. It bypassed the human approval process entirely.
Because the stakes of accidentally ordering too many paper towels are significantly lower than rerouting a massive cargo freighter.
Setting those clear boundaries, knowing what the AI is allowed to do automatically versus what strictly requires human judgment, is a hallmark of resilient operationalization. By automating the low-stakes reflexes, Walmart kept their in-stock rates above 85%, while the rest of the retail industry was suffering at 70 to 75%.
And Microsoft did something similar with their own workforce, right?
Oh, yeah. They shifted 160,000 employees to remote work in just 2 weeks.
Which is mind-boggling.
They used Teams AI features to extract action items from meetings and instantly surface expertise, coordinating massive remote shifts without losing a beat.
Which is a massive lesson, even if you don't run a global retail empire or a tech giant. If you are a mid-level manager listening to this, you need to know which of your daily decisions require your actual nuanced human judgment, and which routine decisions you should be automating or delegating.
Exactly.
Otherwise, when a crisis hits, you become the cognitive bottleneck for your entire team.
That is a perfect application of the concept. And it leads us to the final phase. So you sense the smoke, you grab the extinguisher, and you put out the fire. But the building is damaged, and the neighborhood around you has changed permanently.
Yeah, things are never the same.
You can't just go back to the way things were in 2019.
That brings us to the third dynamic capability reconstruction. It's about rewriting the corporate DNA to fit the new reality.
What's fascinating here is that the true value of AI in the reconstruction phase is continuous organizational learning. It's not a temporary patch to survive a bad quarter. It's a permanent upgrade to your operating model.
Like Schneider Electric, right?
Exactly.
They used market sensing to realize the remote work shift wasn't just a pandemic blip, it was permanent. So they completely pivoted to residential smart home tech and ended up driving a 47% revenue growth.
Ford is another prime example of this.
Oh, Ford's pivot in 2020 was staggering. When global auto demand collapsed, they didn't just panic and start slashing costs blindly. They ran massive AI scenario modeling.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just a spreadsheet projecting a 10% dip in sales. The AI ingested millions of data points on consumer sentiment shifts, massive government stimulus packages, and shifting environmental regulations to map out thousands of potential market futures. It simulated the financial outcomes of different recovery paths.
And what did that model reveal? It showed them that a return to the old status quo was a losing bet. The modeling gave Ford the confidence to massively accelerate their strategic pivot toward electric vehicles and mobility services right in the middle of a global lockdown.
Wow.
That repositioning was so effective that their stock ended up outperforming General Motors by 35 points over the next few years.
We saw the exact same mechanism in healthcare. The Cleveland Clinic built highly complex AI models during the worst COVID surges to optimize their ICU beds and perfectly manage patient flow.
Right.
But when the pandemic subsided, they didn't turn the AI off. They realized the algorithm was just as good at managing everyday hospital traffic. They retained it for routine operations, and it led to an 18% improvement in routine emergency room throughput.
They used the crisis to build a capability, and then they kept it.
Think about your own workplace, your own industry. Have you ever built a temporary fix during an emergency that ended up permanently upgrading how you work? That is reconstruction in action.
It is a powerful concept. But this brings us to a really critical crossroad in the research. We've been talking about massive successes.
Right.
If this technology is such a miracle worker, if it saves global shipping routes and hospital ICUs and automotive giants, why doesn't every struggling company just buy the Ford AI package and win?
It's the multi-million-dollar question, and the answer is that an AI system is basically a seed, and a seed cannot grow in toxic soil.
Oh, well said.
The final section of Dr. Westover's research shifts away from the algorithms entirely and focuses on the human ecosystem required to sustain them, specifically culture, governance, and the very real dark side of deploying this technology. Let's start with the soil itself, a data-driven culture.
The researcher, Xiao, along with colleagues, looked at over 300 firms and found something staggering. Firms that cultivated a strong data-driven culture got 40% stronger performance out of the exact same AI investments compared to firms with weak data cultures.
But what does a data-driven culture actually look like in practice? Because every CEO claims they are data-driven.
It means the data supersedes hierarchy. Think about it. If your incredibly expensive AI system tells you that a vital supplier is about to fail, but your company culture dictates that you only listen to the gut instinct of the senior vice president who's worked with that supplier for 20 years, the AI is completely useless.
Right. The culture has to legitimize the data.
Capital One models this brilliantly. Their leadership constantly reinforces a data-first approach, actively treating the bank as a tech company that happens to handle money.
And MasterCard took that cultural integration even further. They didn't just train their tech guys. They literally built a data university and put 8,000 non-technical staff through data literacy training.
Which is so smart.
They realized that if a frontline customer service rep doesn't actually understand why the AI is flagging a specific transaction as fraudulent, they might just override it or ignore it. If the humans don't understand the tool, the whole system breaks down at the point of contact.
Exactly.
But culture isn't quite enough on its own. You also need adaptive governance. You need an organizational structure that allows people to actually act on the data without waiting for a committee.
Traditional corporate hierarchies are rigid by design. They're built for stability, not speed. To leverage AI effectively, you need structural modularity. Look at Hair, the massive Chinese appliance manufacturer.
Oh yeah, they're a great example.
They broke their massive, slow-moving corporation down into 4,000 semi-autonomous microenterprises.
Yeah.
When the pandemic hit, the localized units that were making home office equipment were able to scale up instantly, while the units servicing the hospitality industry scaled down.
Wow.
They didn't have to wait months for a centralized board of directors to approve the resource shift. The structure allowed them to follow the data organically.
And Spotify does something similar with their fluid squads, right? Reallocating resources dynamically so they never get bogged down.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, we have to talk about the human toll here. Because we are talking very cleanly about AI optimally shifting human beings around like resources on a chessboard.
Right.
If I'm a frontline worker and a faceless algorithm is suddenly optimizing my every move during a massive global crisis, analyzing my efficiency and rerouting my tasks second by second, that doesn't feel like resilience to me. That feels like a dystopian nightmare.
This raises an important question, and it is vital to acknowledge that the research explicitly outlines this dark side. A highly cited study by Kellogg and colleagues in 2020 looked at frontline logistics workers during the pandemic.
Okay.
When AI systems were brought in to actively monitor their performance and dynamically optimize their routes, the workers reported massive increases in anxiety and a devastating loss of autonomy.
And it wasn't necessarily because the physical boxes were heavier, right? It was the psychological mechanism of being managed by a machine.
Exactly. Even if the physical workload remained static, the psychological burden of algorithmic surveillance was crushing. The workers felt stripped of their agency because the machine dictated the exact second they needed to perform a task.
That's rough.
And it's not just an internal workforce problem. Chung's 2020 study on customer service chatbots showed that poorly designed AI actively enraged customers. When people were panicked during the pandemic, an AI that blocked them from reaching a real human didn't optimize the flow. It destroyed the customer relationship.
Which is exactly why that adaptive governance is so critical. It's an operational failure if you burn out your workforce or enrage your clients. The AI has to augment human capability, not act as a hyper-efficient surveillance state.
Yeah, that's why frameworks like IBM's AI ethics guidelines are so crucial. They emphasize maintaining human trust.
Because if you don't actively build trust with the human beings operating the system will fundamentally fail when you need it most.
Precisely. The technology is only as resilient as the humans wielding it.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring everything we've unpacked today together. To build true organizational resilience in a chaotic world, you cannot just throw money at technology.
Right.
You have to align your AI to a specific purpose, knowing exactly when to use work-oriented AI for raw mathematical speed and when to use social-oriented AI for complex human coordination.
Yeah.
You use those tools sequentially to build dynamic capabilities.
Sensing, operationalizing, and reconstructing.
Exactly. Sensing the hidden threats early, operationalizing a rapid, boundary-driven response, and finally reconstructing your corporate DNA for the aftermath. And absolutely none of it works without a data-literate, adaptable human culture that trusts the tools.
It really doesn't.
You don't have to be a tech CEO to apply this. Just understanding how information flows and knowing which decisions to automate in your own daily career is the first step to building your own personal resilience.
And as we look to the future, I want to leave you with a final thought drawn from the underlying implications of everything we've discussed. We've seen how AI acts as this incredible adaptive immune system against global disruptions, from pandemics to sudden supply chain collapses.
Yeah.
But as organizations across the globe become totally and completely dependent on these AI reflexes for their day-to-day survival, what happens when the next massive global disruption is aimed at the AI infrastructure itself? Have we simply outsourced our organizational resilience to a single point of failure?
That is a brilliant and honestly terrifying question. It brings us right back to our biological immune system metaphor.
Yeah, it does.
The immune system is an amazing, life-saving defense mechanism right up until a virus learns how to target the immune cells themselves, creating an autoimmune crisis. You've built an incredible radar to see the storm, but you'd better make absolutely sure that radar has a backup power supply.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the future of business survival. Keep questioning the systems around you, keep learning, and we will catch you next time.
The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA is heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.